Greetings, back on RealmSmalec with another vlog, a Let's Talk. I'm going to try to keep this one shorter, just kind of based on how the series is evolving. And this time I want to talk about somebody who I consider to this day among my top 3 best friends, was also a childhood best friend, similar to Jeff that I talked about last time I did one of these Let's Chats. But I came to know him later in life, and his name is Jason. Jason, again, one of my best friends, and I will first get out of the way the characterization of him, which is that he is intensely loyal, very down to earth, very unassuming. He will do anything for his friends. Very humble, just a nice guy, and just somebody you can hang out with and not like have to entertain or impress. Like, he's happy just hanging out and chatting, and he's very honest and just all around awesome guy. The interesting parts that I'm gonna share, to me the most interesting is really my very first meeting of this guy Jason. Now, as I mentioned before, my best friend that lived across the street, Jeff, was about 2 years or a year and a half younger than I. And so he was a little bit older than my sister. So when I was in senior year in high school, they were in their freshman year. So the age was 2 years difference, but schooling was about 3 years difference. And we lived across the street from each other. Behind Jeff's house was a big field. And then across the field was a creek, and then a baseball diamond, like with a big chain link backstop, and chain link fence backstop. And then the school itself was up on a hill, surrounded by all these oak trees. And then Jason lived across the street from the school. So, technically speaking, I want to say that would probably equate to about 3 blocks away, something like that. Oh shoot, I didn't mean to make 17 of those. Whoops. But anyway, it was close enough that we could walk to his house and stuff. So he was in the same class and the same grade as Jeff. So I didn't know him from the neighborhood. We pretty much hung around with our block. We didn't really hang around with kids outside. But through school, Jeff, obviously hung around with other kids. And so the first time I ever heard of this kid, Jeff was complaining about this kid that is in his class that he started not hanging out with, but interacting with, that he didn't like. And being the loyal and true friend that I am, any kid that Jeff didn't like, I automatically didn't like either. So my first impression of Jason was somebody that I didn't like. And I had no particular reason for not liking him that I can remember. In fact, I don't even know. I mean, I think he and Jeff probably got into some verbal sparring. Cut down contest. We used to have those a lot in school. I don't think there was any actual love lost there. Is that the right term? I don't think there was actually any issues there whatsoever. I think they were kids in class. And so I remember Jeff just like talking about him one day, and then we hung out after school, and this was probably, I have a feeling I was in 7th grade at this point. That feels about right. Maybe even 6th grade, because it feels like I was, like I was old enough to know better, but also old enough to think of some nasty things to do to this kid. So anyway, so I was getting really mad at this kid, Jason, because Jeff was really unhappy with this kid. And I clearly I clearly remember we purposely went to we went up to the school, and there was like a playground at the school. And so we purposely went up to this playground knowing that it was across the street from his house. And like he and his younger brother used to play there sometimes or whatever. And I don't remember exactly how this happened, but we basically went out there, and Jason and his little brother were riding their bicycles around. Oh, here's somebody. And we made a big show. Like, I don't remember. One second. All right, so I helped Digger Bob with something. I came back over here, and there's a bunch of other folks on. I forgot what I was about to do, so I'm going to go take a walk. But I think I remember what I was about to say. We made a big show of being impressed with their bicycles. And these were like BMX off-road bikes. And we're like, oh, can we try your bikes? Can we try it? And I don't know. I don't think we coordinated that in advance. But we basically then... So I think Jeff... I think it was just Jeff and I, and then Jason and his brother. And Jeff took their bikes around and then came back. And then I was like, oh, can I try your bikes too? And so then I took their bikes, one bike, and I took it a lot further back in this big, huge field, all the way back behind this row of trees. And I hopped off the bike, and I found a little stick, and I unscrewed the nozzle cap on the tires, and I proceeded to drain their Jason's bike tires of air. Then I walked myself back to where they were waiting for me, and they're all ticked off, and they're like, what took you so long? Like, why did that take so long? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm walking the bike. I'm not riding it this time. And I was a little bit too big for their bikes. But I wasn't like enormous. Like, I could still ride them comfortably. And I was like, man, your bike sucks. Like, both your tires are flat. And they were all pissed off. And then, like, I think we, like, dropped it and ran or whatever. So, like, basically my first meeting with them was to play a prank on them. A mean prank. I was a bully. Can you imagine me being a bully? And so, yeah, that happened. And then we laughed and we ran off, and they were all pissed off, and they went back home. So some amount of time later, I go back home, and I think I got called home for dinner. And as I'm home for dinner, suddenly there's a knock at the door. And we're like, oh, who's that? Like, oh, there's some strange guy at the door. And the guy asks for my dad. So I'm like, Dad, some guy's here for you. Turns out, this is Jason's dad. He's come, and his dad is pretty built. I hesitate to say ripped. He's a very solid guy. And he's like, are you Ronnie? I'm like, yeah. And like, I can't remember if he asked if my dad was home or if he just started talking to me and then my dad walked up. But he's like, you took my son's bike and you let all the air out of his tires. And he was not yelling at me, but the dad was upset. And my dad steps forward like, hey, uh, you know, Ronnie, did you do this? And I said, yes, I did. It was just a joke. I'm sorry. And but his dad was really pissed. Like I would say he was about to take my dad because he wouldn't do anything to me. I was a kid, but I think he wanted to fight my dad. I'm not even kidding. And he would have won. Like my dad was a skinny, geeky guy who liked to make electrical circuits. So yeah, my dad would have been pulverized. I have no doubt about it. And as this, and like they talked for a couple minutes, and of course, I got in some trouble from my dad, and like I think his dad was satisfied that I was going to get punished at home, and it was just letting the air out. I didn't actually damage the tires because I'm not that cruel. And so like it was more of like a warning thing. But through the exchange that he had with my dad, I was standing back from the door and I'm watching it and I'm listening, and the primary thought that I'm having the whole time this is happening is, gosh, this guy's dad is really awesome. Like he's willing to, for his kid gets in a minor thing, and his dad is willing to come to my house and I won't say threaten, but get in a fight with my dad to defend his son's honor. And and I'm thinking like my dad would never do that. Like I would have to handle it myself. And I just remember being really impressed, and I literally at that age remember thinking like, sort of subconsciously, but at some level it had to be a conscious thought that if this guy's dad is so cool, maybe he's pretty cool. Maybe he's not such a bad kid after all. Now I felt bad for picking on him, a younger kid. But I can't say I felt bad to the point of like, oh my gosh, I'm such a bad kid, blah, blah, blah. I felt suitably bad. But I was more impressed that his dad came all the way to our house and he basically said like, if this ever happens again, I'll call the cops. I can't remember if he said that. I feel like he was more physically threatening than police action threatening. And somehow after that incident occurred, suddenly we started hanging out with Jason. And I don't remember if that happened because like I said, they were going to the same school as each other, and they started hanging out at school or what. I don't remember exactly how, but like after that happened, suddenly Jason wasn't such a bad kid anymore, and he never held a grudge about that. It never became an issue ever going forward. I'm sure it was mentioned, but even that, like, it just was never a thing. So he started hanging around with our group, and that was only one of many times. I mean, kind of after that, like, I think I used to try to show my dominance or kind of show off my relationship with Jeff by picking on Jason a bit more than than Jeff or the other kids. I don't know why. I mean, and he always took it, and he was always pleasant. I mean, he would stand up for himself, and he would particularly stand up for his little brother if needed. But he took it in stride. He didn't get completely upset. Like, he was mad, of course. But sometimes he was more mad that he was going to get in trouble than the fact that we did something to him as a joke. And I'll give you some for examples. So through the next few years of hanging out together, as I mentioned in the other video, we spent a lot of time in Jeff's backyard in his swimming pool. And I gotta be honest, I probably ripped about 3 or 4 of Jason's swimsuits by basically giving him something that we would call an undie cruddy. We'd all be in the swimming pool. I'd sneak up behind him, grab the back of his swimsuit, and yank it straight up as hard as I could. Remember, he's at least 2 years younger than me, so he's a little smaller, and I was a big kid for my age. So it was very uncomfortable, but not only that, I would lift it up so quickly and so hard that rip, and his swimsuit would literally rip off the poor kid, and he would have to he would have to basically leave and go home to get a new suit or change his suit. And I remember his mom getting incrementally upset with me that kept happening. But Jason kept getting mad that my mom's going to be mad at you, or my mom's going to be mad. Like, I almost think he cared more that his mom was going to be upset than the fact that I was ripping the poor kid's swimsuit. So, now, this is not like how I classify Jason or how I think of him, but I think, knowing that we got so close after that is pretty amazing, considering what a little crap butt I was for so long when we first met him. I don't actually need leather because I have item frames. I don't really need this many. I have so many item frames on this server. Okay, and then we didn't go to Jason's house too often. We did go play at his house a bit, but it wasn't nearly as much as Jeff's house. Again, not really for any particular reason, just that Jeff had a cooler yard and stuff like that. And when we did go, we used to go to Jason's house and watch Star Trek: The Next Generation quite a bit. And typically when we'd be there, and we could only be there for like certain hours or like a certain length of time, and then his parents would kick us out because they just didn't want to have kids constantly underfoot. So I think that also kind of contributed to the fact that we weren't there as much. And I will mention one other thing. So Jason had a younger brother who, once Jason got accepted into our group, you may imagine that his brother started tagging along quite a bit. I think he was probably 2 years younger. And he became someone that we all picked on as well, because he was the little kid again, the littler kid. And there's one thing about Jason's brother that, and by the way, Jason's brother grew up to be in construction and I think in law enforcement, or actually I can't remember if he was in security or not, but like, I just remember that he grew up and he was a bodybuilder. Like, he is enormous. This little scrawny kid, when he went to high school, suddenly he bulked up to the point where he probably could have beat the crud out of me. Even though I don't think he ever would, because he always, they always looked up to me. But I have no doubt that he could have, and probably would have been perfectly justified in getting back at me for all those years of terrorizing them. All of this is to say that the funniest thing about Jason's little brother is that he used to have a unique collection. So, as I said, I think I was probably in middle school at this time. And, of course, I was using deodorant. I probably wasn't using cologne yet. At least I'm pretty sure I wasn't, but I knew what cologne was. But when we go to Jason's house, if we went into his little brother's room, he always had on top of his dresser a mirror facing upwards, which was like I don't know what you call it. And on that mirror were probably 30 different kinds of deodorant. He had a deodorant collection. And we're like, okay, I'm in middle school. Let's say that Jason's in, let's just say he's in sixth grade. I'm not even sure if he was in sixth grade still at this point. And his brother would have been in then like third or fourth grade. And the kid has a massive deodorant collection. Now, and I remember asking him, like, why does your brother have so much deodorant? And it was basically because their mom would just buy him deodorant. Oh man, but it was the funniest thing. We're like, why does he have this deodorant? And to this day, Jonas. Oh, sorry, I said his name. His little brother said that he didn't have this, but we all saw it. We all know he had this collection, and he swears that he didn't. And what do I want to say? He used to use it too. Like I remember him using it in front of us, and I remember him using more than one kind. Like he would rotate which kind of deodorant he used. So maybe that was a hint way back then that he was into personal hygiene and his personal appearance that we didn't realize he was going to turn into the bodybuilder that he became. Whoops. But I always thought that was like, that doesn't look very good. I always thought that was one of the funniest things funniest collections that I ever saw a kid have. So then, like I said, we used to sit at Jason's house and watch Star Trek: The Next Generation. And in fact, when we grew close enough that there were times where Jeff wasn't around, like maybe he was at soccer practice or band practice or something, and I would just go over to Jason's house and we would just hang out together. And a lot of times we just sat in his room and he would put CDs on and we listened to music. So he used to have, we all used to be back in those days, part of those music clubs where every week they send you a new CD unless you send back this little postcards, or not every week, every month, unless you send back this postcard saying, no, I don't want it. And you were obligated to purchase X number of albums per year to be in the club, and you'd have to purchase like X number of albums outright, and then you got X number of albums for a penny. And so it was like BMG Music Club, I think is what it was called. I really didn't want this to come out so far. And Jason had all this music. So Jason is actually the one who turned me on to Pearl Jam, which is, to this very day, my favorite band ever. They are amazing, awesome, just amazing. And the whole alternative music scene, and Nirvana. I can like when I think of Pearl Jam, I think of laying on Jason's floor while he did whatever he was doing, and just having Nirvana and Pearl Jam playing in the background, and just literally closing my eyes and listening to all of the different instrumental tracks and all of Eddie Vedder's vocal inflections and all of the different nuances and the lyrics of Pearl Jam, and just absolutely falling in love with that music, and never from that day forward, shaping my musical tastes for the rest of my life, literally for the rest of my life. And so anytime I listen to Pearl Jam and Nirvana, I often think of Jason. And he fell in love with the Beatles and Fish and Beatles cover bands, and he goes to Beatles cover band concerts all the time. Like anytime American English comes around, that's one of them. He is at their concert, and he's always reaching out to us and being like, hey, they're coming to town. Does anybody want to go? Now, I never got into the Beatles, but I'm pretty sure that's Jason's favorite band to this day, and he just loves going to Beatles cover bands. And he had Beatles posters and all that stuff. And his wife enjoys it too. They go to concerts together all the time. She's really cool, by the way. And I think I forgot to say this. Jason also has kids. We all have kids. He has kids who are awesome. He has some amazing daughters, and he has a 2-year-old son who are all amazing. And oh, yeah. So I went out to dinner with Jason and Jeff the other night, right after I recorded the Jeff episode, and Jason had some wonderful stories about his kids and how, in particular, his son, a 2-year-old son, bashed their TV with a plastic baseball bat and cracked it, so they had to buy a new TV. Oh man, the things that parents have to put up with. All right, I'm just checking the length of these walls because for some reason, okay, there's 3 of them sticking out and 1 of them sticking in, and it's not symmetrical. There's 1, 2. This one is sticking out on the other side. Okay, what else was I gonna say about Jason? So, oh yeah, so his love of music, his mom, by the way, one of her favorite pastime was going to garage sales. Now, not our kiddie garage sales, but actually legit adult garage sales, and purchasing all kinds of weird stuff. So Jason got a lot of Beatles memorabilia and Beatles paraphernalia from that, as well as he got a lot of like interesting comic books and unique things related to Star Wars. So Jason is a huge Star Wars fan, and anytime that I think about Star Wars and want to talk to somebody about, hey, did you see the movie and this and that, like Jeff and I were both into it as kids, and we each had half of the Star Wars action figures collection and that. And we watched all the movies together over and over and over again. But somehow, when I think of a Star Wars fan, Jason was more invested in the details of Star Wars. That's just my impression. And he named his dog Chewie after Chewbacca. And he, like when he's just not doing stuff. When he's relaxing, a lot of times it has to do with Star Wars. And so a lot of my love for Star Wars is shared with Jason. So yeah, I mean, I was so blessed to grow up with these 2 people that I still consider my best friends all the way from elementary school. I have 3 other quote-unquote best friends, I don't know why I said quote-unquote, that I want to talk about, some in more detail, some in less. Amazing people that shaped my life, and hopefully if any of them listen to these episodes, I wouldn't be who I am today without these people. So in a way, this is my thank you. But also just me thinking back and like just really being amazed and astounded at the experiences that I had. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I will talk to you in the next episode.